This video contains some spoilers from the previous games in the Layton series, including, bizarrely enough, Layton's mystery journey. You have been warned. As of this video's release, it has been over 200 days since we were first teased with a new entry in the Layton series, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. And I'm fairly certain we could all say that nobody was expecting another game at all. I've gone on record several times over the years stating that the Layton series is, without a doubt, completely and utterly dead. There will never be another game, the series has ended, and LMJ's flop in sales has assuredly killed the franchise. But on the 2nd of February, 2023, something astonishing happened. Something that would shock fans in all corners of our curious little franchise, sparking so many unexpected conversations with friends and strangers across the globe. For me specifically, it was a particularly good day. Just a couple hours before the Nintendo Direct that would shift everyone's attention back to a man in a ridiculously large hat, I was standing in the biscuit aisle of Morrison's and received a call I'd been hoping for, offering me a better job in a better part of the country. To celebrate, I bought all the ingredients for one of my favourite dishes, picked up a nice bottle of whiskey, and quickly headed home to print out my resignation letter. But just as I was popping my celebratory pasta bake into the oven, my phone went mental. Discord, Twitter, Instagram, even a text message from a mate I hadn't spoken to in years, it all said the same thing. New Layton game.
He's back.
I cannot believe
I
it.
literally cannot believe this right now.
Back.
Surely not.
He's back. He's back?
In a matter of seconds, I'd found the teaser and joined the conversation. Hino, you madman! Just when everyone and their mum thought the series had been abandoned for good, you raised it from the dead like an Azran miracle. But just as quickly as interest in the series began to jump up again, information from Level 5 with Nintendo simply stopped appearing. Was it too good to be true? Had they released the teaser too early and not had enough actual content to share? Was this game going to get the same treatment as the elusive Layton 7? We don't really know. I remember when I was a kid and I was on a train into London with my granddad, and I began to tell him that I was writing a book. I'd got all the characters sorted and I knew the plot was going to be amazing. But in reality, I'd hardly written the title. And now, over 200 days since getting a title from Hino, I'm beginning to think that New World of Steam is going the same way as my detective novel in 2013. But hey, Level 5 was kind enough to drop us a 3-minute teaser trailer, so let's have a look at that and discuss my predictions for Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. One thing we know for certain is that, unlike LMJ, Professor Layton and Luke are firmly back at the helm. And while it's possible that a portion of the game will feature just Layton in London, it'll be nice to have our dynamic duo solving the case at hand. I think that was one of the biggest flaws with LMJ as well, in that people didn't really like Catriel's personality, but Layton and Luke have established personalities from the original games, and I think that is a great idea to have them back in charge going forwards. When Flora was introduced to the series back in Curious Village, it's likely that the developers didn't really know what to do with her. Baron Reinhold's plan for Flora in the tower was to find a suitable suitor for his daughter, but it's unlikely he anticipated that saviour being a new guardian, at least in the Japanese version of the game. In hindsight, it would have been much better for Flora to be confined to just one game, taking over Bruno's position in the village, ultimately deciding that she didn't need protecting and could become the protector of the village. But instead she hopped into Layton's car and spent the next 2 games getting kidnapped and forgotten about. Even LMJ, which chronologically happens at a time after the events of Lost Future, fails to even name drop her. Nobody knew what to do with Flora, and in New World of Steam I wouldn't be too surprised if she fails to show up too. There is this image in the teaser trailer which could be Flora, but even if it is, the fact that she wasn't shown on the airship in the trailer makes me believe that if she does appear in the game, she'll be left in London. The title isn't very good. It's very wordy, and it's literally just a direct translation of the Japanese title, just like Azran Legacy was known as Legacy of the Civilization A when it was first announced. It could possibly get changed to something better down the line, but given that all the English teasers have used this title so far, it may well stick. Since Curious Village, the overall art style has changed dramatically. But for now, let's just look at the character design. The 2D character drawings in the teaser do have a similar design style to characters in previous entries, albeit the more perfected LMJ style than the rustic and crunchy designs seen in Curious Village. If I'm honest, I'm not really a fan of the glossy style that Layton and Luke seem to have in the teaser, but it does quite clearly say that this isn't actual gameplay footage. I'm also hoping that the actual cutscenes in the game aren't 3D renders like this, though that's largely because I'm a PA Works purist, and I don't think that the vintage aesthetic of the older games would look good if as polished as this. One thing I'll also add is that Luke's design looks different. For a game set only 1 year after the events of Lost Future, his character seems to have grown drastically, and even his face just seems to look strange. Maybe it's that his eyes now take up a whole third of his face. I don't know. I suppose it was difficult making an older Luke without it looking too much like Clive or Duke from previous games. We will not get any big recurring character making an appearance. Every key recurring character of the original trilogy was replaced in the prequels, proving that they could be replaced and the story would still continue just fine. Inspector Chelmy became Inspector Grosky, Statch and Scarfin became Aldous, Dr. Schrader became Clark Triton. You get the picture. Even with the possibility of a London section, I really doubt any sort of big names will appear. It would be nice to see Dean Delmona at Gressenhaller University before Layton leaves, or maybe Pavel over in the States, lost as usual, but I think our chances are pretty slim. Other than fan service, a recurring character probably wouldn't be able to add much to the plot, especially so given that this game takes place in an entirely different continent. After so many fanfics set in the States, it'll be so interesting to see what Hina's vision of the country is in Steam Bison. And with a gun-toting villain, we're off to a great start. As the teaser states that it's not actual gameplay, we can't really pick out any key locations that will feature in the plot, like we could in previous trailers. But I imagine the city will look a bit like future London, but with a little bit more gloss. One thing I am really hoping for though is the possibility of an open world game. As much as I love the hand-drawn locations in the original 4 games, I'd have killed for the opportunity to explore each town and city in 3D. The closest Layton has ever come to an open world is the ruins exploration in Miracle Mask, but that was still pretty contained, so it would be fantastic to be able to explore a whole town with Layton and Luke. It's difficult to grasp the story from what we've been shown so far, as there hasn't even really been a core mystery set up yet. In the original 6 games, the first 3 relied more on sci-fi, whereas the prequels had more fantasy elements, and I'd hope with Steam Bison's aesthetic we'll get a heavier focus on sci-fi, but it's anyone's guess at this point. Just like the story, we don't really seem to be seeing much of the villain in the trailer, but it's clear that we've got a new villain to the franchise. I think it's pretty safe to say that Don Paolo and Descalé won't be making an appearance, as their stories seem to have come to an end, and to be honest it was a little disappointing to see Don Paolo in the LMJ anime, as the impression we get at the end of Lost Future is that he's just going to stop being evil and all that, but here he is starting fights in a museum and nicking shit that's probably been nicked from an ancient tribe or something. Not cool, Paul. Not cool. In Curious Village, Layton states Lady Dahlia contacted him after reading about him in the newspaper, and it's likely that the story mentioning him was the discovery, revival, and subsequent collapse of the Azran civilization in Azran Legacy. Having just travelled the world and met lots of new people, Layton's reputation seems to only grow. By the end of Lost Future, he was seen piloting a modified Citroen 2CV through the skies above East London, saving the Prime Minister from a maniac in a moving fortress, and would therefore undoubtedly be in almost every newspaper worldwide. Yet in the trailer, Layton seems to have zero reputation in the States. Despite all the crazy things he's been involved in the last 5 or so years, nobody knows who he is. This is probably to put Luke into the spotlight more, but it's still a bit jarring to say that nobody knows the man. The theme tune that's used in the teaser seems to be a redo of Miracle Mask's theme, so perhaps an original piece of music doesn't exist yet. But as long as Tomohito Nishiura's on board, then I'm sure it'll be great. With a steampunk diesel punk aesthetic, it'd be cool to hear some instrumentation that draws from artists like Abney Park, Unwoman and Johnny Hollow, or maybe the soundtrack to the old Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr. Unlike LMJ, which reused London as the setting and subsequently the soundtrack, having a new location entirely means we'll be treated to new music, so it'll be great to hear the direction that Nishiyura takes this. After LMJ's general dislike amongst fans in the West, it will be very interesting to see the direction that New World of Steam goes in. With Layton actually appearing in this one, there'll be a lot of pressure on Hino and his team to ensure that this entry holds up. As it'll be released on the Switch first, for many people this could be their first Layton game, and so I hope that that doesn't take priority over impressing existing fans of the series too. Slapping Layton's name in the title and then making something entirely different anyway was my main criticism of LMJ, so hopefully Hino's bringing back the Layton name out of love this time, rather than just creating sales. Don't get me wrong, I am thrilled to see our little franchise in the limelight again, and I hope this entry holds up just as strong as the original trilogy did. But given the insane twists of Lost Future and Azran Legacy, I worry that in order to top those, it'll just get ridiculous. Still, the fact that we're getting new Layton content in the next couple of years is unreal, and as much as we all want a nostalgic dive back into the older style of the series, I'm still excited for something new, and I think you should be too. Thanks for watching.